Phoenix Knights. Chapter 3277 Xiaoming Ancient City. Chapter 3277 Xiaoming Ancient City. The manager of the Azure Dragon Gang explained what he knew about the Vile Dragon Domain. There were 4 major forces here, and the Azure Dragon Gang was one of them. Both the boss and the vice boss were immortal kings. And coincidentally, this vice boss was actually a traitor who was expelled from the High Firmament Academy 1300 years ago. Long Chun was a bit surprised that the academy hadn't mentioned this to him. A traitor had actually managed to rise to the Immortal King realm? That was a bit strange. According to reason, anyone who could ascend to the Immortal King realm had to be very talented, such as an outstanding primal. They were elites amongst elites. How could the High Firmament Academy expel such a person? He really was unable to see through the High Firmament Academy. Furthermore, after encountering Immortal Kings one after another, he found something odd. The Immortal Kings that he had seen didn't give him a feeling of too much pressure. On the other hand, Bai Zhantang and his wives all gave him a mightier sense of pressure. On the surface, they only had the power of divine lords. But the 9-star hegemon body art senses were always amazingly accurate. Due to this, he had a feeling that Bai Zhantang and the others were likely sealing their true power. It seemed that the High Firmament Academy's power truly wasn't something that he could imagine. The title of the world's #1 academy was not for nothing. From the manager, Long Chun learned that this traitor's name was Jiu Yang. He was given the moniker of the Little Spirit King because he was a rarely seen spirit cultivator, and his flying sword controlling art had reached perfection. The Azure Dragon Gang had the Little Spirit King Qiu Yang and the Dragon Claw Zhao Qilong. They were both famous existences in the Vile Dragon Domain. The Azure Dragon Gang had 2 immortal kings standing guard over it, and its gang contained 1 million members. Yet, with so many experts, they were not powerful enough to dominate the Vile Dragon Domain. They were only one of the 4 major forces. The other 3 were the Blood Drinking Alliance, Dragon Slaughter Guild, and the Iron Blood Mercenary Group. These 4 powers constantly fought each other, but their powers were evenly matched, so no side was able to get an advantage over the others. Amongst these 4 powers, the Azure Dragon Gang and the Dragon Slaughtering Guild were mortal enemies. Of course, just from their names, it could be seen that these 2 factions were opposing each other. In every encounter, they would almost instantly start killing each other with no room for talking. When it came to disciples like Long Chun and the others who came from outside the domain, they were usually from rich families and had come out to adventure. As they had quite a few protective treasures, they were viewed as sheep for the slaughter by these people. So, killing them for their treasures was often seen here. As for poor disciples that came here, they were usually forced by their enemies to flee here or had to risk their lives here in a gamble to get stronger. If those disciples had decent aptitude and guts, the 4 powers would take them in to strengthen themselves. As a result, the Vile Dragon Domain had gathered a bunch of ruthless figures. Although their cultivation bases weren't incredibly high, they would make sure no kind people existed in this place. The other 3 powers also had immortal kings standing guard over them, and not just one. In other domains, such figures would be enough to be sect masters. But they lived in the shadows here. It was said that these people all possessed secret backgrounds. According to the manager, the Little Spirit King Qiu Yang had done something taboo, which was why he was chased out of the High Firmament Academy and fled here. As for the boss, Zhao Qilong, he had once been the master of a sect. Due to offending the Bloodkill Hall annihilated his sect overnight, and he fled here, no longer daring to leave. It was said that the violent aura here had a large effect on assassins. The Bloodkill Hall's assassins wouldn't stay here for a long period. That was something that Long Chun understood. Assassins focused on cultivating their concealing arts, so they had techniques to slow the flow of their blood and lower their temperature, which allowed them to conceal themselves and keep their heads cool. This was where the term cold-blooded assassins came from. As for the Vile Dragon Domain's violent aura, it not only affected their blood chi but also their mind. That was why they didn't set foot in this domain. Zhao Qilong was definitely the safest here. The most interesting thing about these 4 powers was that their headquarters were actually in the same place. That was because within the vile dragon domain, the safest area was Zhaoming Ancient City. It was said that this was a remnant of an ancient city. Although its original buildings had long since crumbled, for some reason, the devil beasts did not dare to enter the ruins of that area. They didn't even dare to get close. Even if people provoked immortal king devil beasts, as soon as they fled into the area around Zhaoming Ancient City, those devil beasts would stop and silently leave. Zhaoming Ancient City was split into 4 regions: north, south, east, and west. Those 4 regions were each occupied by one of the 4 major powers. The 4 powers all respected one rule: no matter their enmity and grudges, they would not fight within the city. That was because they didn't know what was causing the devil beasts to be scared of the city. If the city was damaged in battle and whatever scared them away was broken, the devil beasts could invade and everyone would die. Thus, at the very least, Zhaoming City could be counted as a somewhat safe place. People didn't dare to fight there because no one wanted to be killed. On the way there, Bai Xiaola caught a storm eagle. He then made it fly at full speed for a full day and night, driving it to the point where it almost spat out blood. But thanks to it, they finally saw the figure of an ancient city ahead. As expected, when they saw that ancient city, the storm eagle that Bai Xiaola had caught no longer dared to go any further. Even if it was beaten to death, it refused to go further. Bai Xiaola could not force it. Due to it having carried them all this way, Bai Xiaola simply released it. While carrying the sullen manager of the Azure Dragon Gang, they continued onward. But as they went further, the trees grew sparser and the land grew flatter. Through a grassy underbrush, they could vaguely see some bricks of the ancient era. Those bricks were covered in moss. They were simply lying there, as if trying to tell a story. Upon reaching the edge of the ancient city, Long Chen and the others felt an ineffable morning feeling. Long Chen, Qin Feng, and Qiyu came to a stop at the same time. They exchanged a glance, seeing the shock in the other's eyes. They had experienced this feeling before. It was the feeling that they had felt on the martial heaven continent when Qu Jiangying, the old man, Ling Yunzi, Hu Feng, and the others fell one by one. It was that feeling of powerlessness, that will to only fight to death, and the sorrow of eternal rest. It seems that this really is an ancient city with its own story, sighed Long Chen as he looked at these ruins. Who's there? Long Chen and the others had just appeared when they heard a shout from up ahead. Boss Long San has honored us with his presence. Call out the boss of your Azure Dragon Gang to come kowtow in greeting. Before Long Chen could reply, Bai Xiaola was already shouting impatiently. As a result, countless figures came out from all over the ruins. How brazen! Juniors, did you come from so far away just to die? A cold snort rang out. After that, a vast aura rose, and a group of people walked over. Favorite. Chapter 3278 Do you have an opinion? Chapter 3278 Do you have an opinion? Long Chen saw the boss of the Azure Dragon Gang, Zhao Qinglong. He wasn't tall, but he was exceptionally well built, and there was a long scar covering half of his face. A piece of his cheekbone was also missing. It was said that this scar was left by an assassin from the Bloodkill Hall. At that time, the dagger had been aiming to kill him, but he had managed to dodge. His appearance had already been a bit sinister-looking before that assassination attempt. Now with this scar, he was positively ominous. His eyes were like those of a bloodthirsty beast, and killing intent filled every part of him. It had sunk deep into his bones and soul, giving people the feeling of a merciless, murderous beast. Beside Zhao Qilong was a tall middle-aged man with a sword on his back. His face was much better looking. This person was the vice leader of the Azure Dragon Gang, also the traitor who was expelled from the High Firmament Academy, the little spirit King Qiuyang. When standing beside Zhao Qinglong, this deputy was much easier to look at. However, when Long Chen looked at him, he found him to be worse. In his eyes, Long Chen saw a twisted warped soul. Behind the two of them were thousands of experts, all of them divine lords. It went without saying that such a group would definitely be a supreme sect in another domain. These people all had violence in their natures. It could be that their auras had been infected by the aura of this place, or they were simply this bloodthirsty from the get-go. The small fry that had escaped from the slaughter last time clearly managed to send word back to the Azure Dragon gang, so they knew that Long Chen and the others were coming. Qin Feng then kicked the manager in the butt, sending him tumbling to the front of Zhao Qinglong. Your mission has been completed. We said that as long as you led the way, we'd spare your dog life. We've fulfilled our promise, said Long Chen indifferently. The High Firmament Academy's people? Qiu Yang narrowed his eyes as he eyed Bai Shirshir and Bai Shaole's robes. A touch of sinister light appeared in his eyes. That's right. I am the Dean of the High Firmament Academy's 7th branch. I've come here to clean up the sect, so I'll be taking your dog life. I like to do things directly, so what do you think? Do you want to cut off your own head and give it to me, or are you going to make me personally take it? After Bai Shaola took out a chair, Long Chen plopped himself on it and crossed his eyes, looking at Qiu Yang indifferently. Ha! Qiu Yang laughed, his voice full of disdain. It was as if he had heard the world's funniest joke. The 7th Branch Academy? The Dean? Are you trying to make me laugh to death? The High Firmament Academy's branches have long since become history. The High Firmament Academy has already declined and is on the verge of collapse. Now you actually call yourself the Dean of a branch academy that was destroyed tens of millions of years ago? Are you an idiot? Tens of millions of years? Has it been so long? Long Chen was surprised. He really hadn't known that the branch academies had been destroyed so long ago. You don't even know this history yet claim to be the Dean? Truly courting death dash, sneered Qiu Yang. Just as he sneered, his vision darkened as Long Chen's hand had struck his face. Who told you to laugh? I am the Dean. Do you have a fucking opinion on that? The two sides were less than 300 meters apart, and they were just chatting. Hence, no one had expected the seated Long Chen to suddenly attack. As a result, Qiu Yang was sent flying like a spinning top, and his blood sprayed along with a dozen teeth. He was sent so far that he smashed into the large group of people at the rear. They then coughed up blood, their appearances truly wretched. It happened all too suddenly. The vice boss of the Azure Dragon gang, a grand immortal king, was slapped in the face in front of everyone. Even Zhao Qinglong jumped in shock. By the time he reacted, Long Chen had returned to his seat as if nothing had happened. You! Zhao Qinglong had originally not placed Long Chen and the others in his eyes. He had been debating himself whether or not this was some sinister scheme from the Dragon's Slaughtering Guild. As a result, though, when Long Chen made his move, his expression instantly changed. Even with his cultivation base, he was unable to see through Long Chen's movements. If just now it hadn't been a slap but had been a saber or sword, would Qiu Yang still have his life? However, in truth, he had overestimated Long Chen. Long Chen's face-slapping technique's principle was based on lacking any killing intent. It could not be a killing blow. But if he was close enough, he could strike before others could even react. If it was a weapon, or an attack containing more than just simple physical power, the very thought of doing such a thing would naturally produce killing intent. When the other side sensed a mortal danger, they would automatically react. So slapping people was alright, but killing people wasn't. It was simply because outsiders were unable to comprehend that instantly. They simply thought that if Long Chen could slap them, he could also kill them as he pleased. It went without saying that this move of Long Chen truly had many uses. Qiu Yang crawled up and spat out blood. When people saw him, they cried out in shock. Qiu Yang's head was now deformed and there was a clear handprint on his face. It was astonishing. Long Chen's slap had almost shattered his head. I didn't expect a spirit cultivator to have such a weak body. Even Long Chen was surprised. Just now, if he had just used just a bit more power, perhaps he would have directly killed Qiu Yang. Courting death. Qiu Yang circulated his power, healing his wounds. As his face twisted, a venomous light filled his eyes. He then slammed his hands together in front of him and prepared hand seals. Stop! Zhao Qinglong shouted and turned to Long Qin. Friend, just who are you? Why are you targeting us? You're still young, so don't get used by others. You'll regret it in the end. Considering that Zhao Qinglong was the leader of such a powerful force, he couldn't possibly just be a fighter. He felt that Long Chen's arrival was too sudden. There might be some scheme behind it. Furthermore, considering that they dared to enter the Vile Dragon domain at such an age and were still able to maintain their calm in front of so many experts showed that they were extraordinary. There was no way to fake the calm and indifference in their eyes. That was the confidence of true experts. That kind of thing was completely different from the fools who rushed in. He had no choice but to be cautious. Who would be using them? Zhao Qinglong, the longer you live, the more useless and cowardly you are. Do you think that junior brother is being used by me to come find trouble for you? Just then, a sweet and soft voice rang out. A slender woman with dual-hook weapons on her back appeared in the air, looking disdainfully at Zhao Qinglong. Evil. When Long Qin saw that woman, he smiled slightly. Based on her appearance, he knew her status. Chapter 3279 Cleaning Up the Sect. Chapter 3279 Cleaning Up the Sect. This woman looked to be around 30 and wore skin-tight leather with half her chest exposed, giving people a panoramic view of 2 snow-white mountains and a mountain valley. She possessed the grace of a mature woman, to the point that people almost wished to take a juicy bite of those honey peaches. Her eyes seemed to draw people's souls in. However, this extremely alluring woman was a vicious figure. She was the leader of one of the 4 major powers in the Vile Dragon domain, the Dragon's Slaughtering Guild. Yet she went by the sweet name of Jianyuha. The lotus within the reins swayed ever so gently. Its beauty was moving. However, this lotus was not so tender. There were poisonous thorns beneath its leaves, and its poison was lethal. Considering that she had created her own power within the Vile Dragon domain, and even after being mortal enemies with the Azure Dragon gang she was still living well, it could be seen that this woman was not simple. She was also an immortal king, and her aura even felt a bit stronger than Zhao Qinglong's. Right now, there was another immortal king behind her along with 2 half-step immortal kings. The Azure Dragon gang's experts tensed up as soon as they saw her. All of them were ready to fight. Although they all followed the unwritten rule of not fighting within this remnant of the ancient city, no one entrusted their lives to this rule. Junior brother, are you here to find trouble for the Azure Dragon gang? If so, Big Sister supports you. Jianyuha smiled at Long Qin sweetly. How will you support me? Will you help me destroy the Azure Dragon gang? Asked Long Qin, smiling with just as much sincerity. Oh, do you need Big Sister's help to destroy the Azure Dragon gang? I feel like there's entirely no need. Why don't you simply kill those 2 and take over the Azure Dragon gang? You can be the leader then, and Big Sister will warm your bed for you. Then you would be in control of 2 major forces. Doesn't that sound good? Jianyuha winked at Long Qin. It went without saying that her skill wasn't bad. In addition to her fiery build, she was full of ripened charm that would move any man. She was capable of drawing out a man's most primitive desire. However, just who was Long Qin? Which one of his women wasn't a peerless beauty capable of causing the downfall of a nation? Hence, Long Qin was almost immune to this kind of woman. He simply smiled at Jianyuha. He knew that she schemed deeply. She was using this method to probe him. Just as he was about to reply, he felt a slight pain in his waist. Seeing Long Qin and Jianyuha practically flirting with their eyes, Bai Shishir reached out and pinched him. Long Qin was instantly made speechless. Seeing that small action of Bai Shishir's, Jianyuha laughed. Little sister, this is no good. Men should be wild and uncontrollable. Even if they have a heavenly fairy waiting for them at home, they still want to taste wild game. Furthermore, I only mentioned warming his bed, not marrying him. Why are you getting so emotional? Evil. Shut up. Who is emotional? Bai Shishir frostily glared at this woman. She was merely dissatisfied with Long Qin staring at this woman for so long, and had disciplined him. Hence, for this woman to speak so bluntly, Bai Shishi's face almost reddened. Haha, then I'll keep my mouth shut. Big sister was just joking with you. In any case, if you need help, then go ahead and ask. Jian Yuhe laughed, not angry at all. She then simply stood there, seemingly intent on just watching. At this moment, Long Chun could almost sense other experts secretly watching from a distance. The other two major forces were probably lurking in the dark. But they didn't have great enmity with the Azure Dragon Gang, so they didn't come out directly like the Dragon's Slaughtering Guild. Zhao Qinglong's expression sank. He didn't know Long Chen's origins, but based on Jiang Yi's tone, the two were not acquainted. That made him feel a bit better. Since no one is acquainted, why would you come here to provoke my Azure Dragon Gang? There must be a reason, right? Demanded Dao Qinglong. Long Chen smiled. A reason? Why do you want a reason? I came to the Vile Dragon domain to do something big. I am going to restore the 7th Branch Academy. But I don't know where it is, so I came to this city to find a few knowledgeable people. And coincidentally, some small fries from your Azure Dragon Gang offended me, so I came here. Then even more coincidentally, I encountered a traitor of my High Firmament Academy. I feel like this is a good chance to make my name here and shake all of you. By slaughtering Qiu Yang, I can clean up my sect, as well as kill the chicken to warn the monkeys. It is 2 goals with 1 move, 2 birds with 1 stone, 2 prey with 1 arrow. Ignorant brat, you are courting death. Qiu Yang roared. Long Chen's tone was exceedingly arrogant. He actually turned Qiu Yang into a tool for his own fame, and that was unacceptable for Qiu Yang. We can discuss whether or not I'm courting death later. First of all, don't interrupt me. Let me finish. I know that some others are watching in the distance. I will not beat around the bush. Now that I'm here, you'll have to listen to me in the future, said Long Chen calmly. Hearing this, Zhao Qinglong laughed furiously. In all his years, he had never seen someone so arrogant. Today, his eyes had been opened to the world. Listen to you? Based on what? Zhao Qinglong's expression was disdainful. He was afraid of the power behind Long Chen, but based on Long Chen's arrogant words, it didn't seem that he had other experts backing him. Is your head full of shit? This is the Vile Dragon domain. Everyone here talks with their fists. Why ask what this is based on? Long Chen eyed Zhao Qinglong like he was an idiot. He then looked at the gloomy Qiu Yang who was erupting with killing intent. Oh, youngster, if I personally attacked you, it would be bullying you. Even if I killed you, you wouldn't accept your defeat. In order to let you die fully convinced, they'll pick someone else for you. As long as you can endure 10 exchanges against her, it'll spare your dog life. Long Chen then turned to Bai Shishu, and she immediately walked out very obediently. She coldly looked at Qiu Yang. I've heard of your name. You killed fellow disciples while gaining experience in a secret realm to take their treasures. The Academy then announced a kill order for you but didn't expect you to run here. Today, I will represent the Academy in cleaning up the sect. Although Long Chen had read quite a bit in the Academy, when it came to the history of the Academy, especially history that was kept secret, Bai Shishu knew more than him. Thus, as soon as she had learned Qiu Yang's identity, she made the decision to kill him. Ha! Qiu Yang laughed. Ripples spread from his body, and a terrifying aura was unleashed. A group of idiots who don't know how high the heavens are. Today, I'll show you that you're nothing more than frogs at the bottom of a well. As Qiu Yang formed hand seals, the sword on his back flew out. At the same time, endless swords appeared in the air, forming an endless sea of swords. All those swords were pointed at Bai Shishu, their sharp auras slicing through the void. Bai Shishu then looked at Qiu Yang frostily and slowly reached for the hilt of her sword. When a golden mark appeared in her eyes, a chilling killing intent erupted. Chapter 3281 Sword to Slay an Immortal King. Chapter 3281 Sword to Slay an Immortal King. Golden light flowed around Bai Shishi's entire body. Within her manifestation, a beautiful golden goddess appeared and merged with her. She appeared sacred, holy, and untouchable. In the face of an immortal king, Bai Shishir didn't hold back. Her metal energy was circulated to her peak state. With her at the center, everything within 1,000 miles turned golden. At this moment, Bai Shishi's sword quivered. Its runes seemed to come to life, and they began to move on top of the sheath. This was Long Chen's first time seeing Bai Shishir going all out since the 9 Prefecture Convention. Her metal energy was truly terrifying. When she activated it, the power of the heavenly Taos automatically assisted her. She was like a golden sun illuminating the world. Even Jiang Yuhe, Zhao Qinglong, and the other experts that hadn't revealed themselves felt their hearts shake. They had never witnessed someone with such terrifying metal energy. Upon seeing this, Qiu Yang's expression changed. He suddenly had a bad feeling as a sense of fear that he could not suppress rose within his heart. Qiu Yang's hand seals suddenly changed, and millions of spirit swords condensed into a torrent flooding toward Bai Shishir. Originally, it should have been forbidden to attack in this place. He had only unleashed his aura in order to extinguish the flame of Long Chen's arrogance, and the true battle should have been fought outside. However, he was unable to wait. He attacked in advance, while Bai Shishi's aura was still climbing. He wanted to interrupt her. In return, the golden sword came out of its sheath and golden light erupted. It slashed down, passing through the torrent of swords, going straight against the flow to slash at Qiu Yang. The flow of millions of swords was cut apart by golden sword light. The divine radiance annihilated all those swords. In front of the golden sword, they were unable to endure the slightest contact. Suddenly, the golden light vanished. And with a light sound, Bai Shishi's sword returned to its sheath. The golden light illuminating the world vanished without a trace. After that, Bai Shishi's own golden light vanished, revealing her true appearance. But then, her face was as pale as paper, and blood leaked out of the corner of her mouth. Seeing this, Qin Feng and the others were startled. Bai Shishir was injured? Could it be that she was unable to endure a single blow from Qiu Yang? Why bother? Even if it has recognized you as its master, its power isn't something that you can control yet. You injured yourself just to kill him. Long Chen reached out to support the tottering Bai Shishir. He knew that this one blow had sucked up all her energy. It had to be known that this was a king item. Only world kings were capable of creating such a thing. How could a little 4-peak novice control it? Bai Shishir had actually tried to activate the runes of this king item. As a result, she only managed to activate a single king item rune. She then unleashed one attack that used up all her energy, to the point that she didn't even have anything left to resist the backlash. Long Qin gave her a medicinal pill, and only then did her complexion improve slightly. Long Qin then sat her down where he was originally sitting. Only then did everyone turn to look at Qiu Yang. He was just standing there. Suddenly, the sword in his hand broke. It fell to the ground and shattered into golden dust. As for his own body, from the top of his head down to his abdomen, a golden line appeared. Everyone stared at him in horror. Only now did they realize that his spiritual fluctuations had long since vanished. He was already dead. Suddenly, Qiu Yang's body exploded, like a statue packed in golden sand. As he collapsed, the golden powder scattered. This golden powder slowly merged into the earth until nothing was left. It was as if the little spirit king Qiu Yang had never existed. Whether it was Zhao Qinglong or Jiang Yuhe, they were terrified. That sword was something that would kill whoever it touched. A little 4-peak disciple actually possessed such power? EOVL. CM it had to be known that the sword in Qiu Yang's hand was also on the level of a king item. Although it was considered to be a defective good amongst king items, it was still a king item. For it to have been broken like that, just what level was Bai Shishi's sword? For a moment, the world was silent. Everyone stared at the pale Bai Shishir who was in the midst of recovering. Zhao Qinglong, your little spirit king Qiu Yang has died, and my friend has temporarily lost her combat power. Why don't you try seeing if you can avenge your comrade? Long Chen had given Bai Shishir his chair, so he took out another one and lazily sat on it. Zhao Qinglong's expression was ugly. He was infuriated inside. Just how was he so unlucky? He was just sitting at home when calamity descended from the heavens. Moreover, this calamity came all too suddenly. Why did it have to come for him? Although Bai Shirshir was injured and had lost her combat power, Long Chen appeared far too calm for Zhao Qilong to think that he could take advantage of this. He was completely suppressed by Long Chen's domineeringness. After all, he was no blind man. He could see that Long Chen was the true leader of this group, and the leader was definitely the strongest. Even after all his years of experience, he had no idea what to do in this situation. "Friend, what do you want? Just tell me. If you really want to go too far, then I, Zhao Qinglong, will definitely accompany you to death," said Zhao Qinglong coldly. For him to say such a thing, anyone with a brain could tell that he was afraid. He had no intention of avenging Qiu Yang. As long as Long Chen didn't continue killing, he would let this matter go. I didn't expect that the world-shaking leader of the Azure Dragon Gang would also have a day when he waved his tail and begged for mercy. Don't you remember the day you became sworn brothers? Didn't you say that you would die together? What? After your brother died, are you not planning on accompanying him? Jian Yuhe immediately threw some stones at him while he was down. Hearing this, Zhao Qinglong was ashen with rage. However, Long Chen's group was too frightening. He was unable to see through their true power, so he didn't dare to do anything. With no way to retort to Jiang Yi's mocking, Zhao Qinglong directly pretended as if he couldn't hear it. He simply looked at Long Chen. Seeing that, Long Chen laughed. As expected of the leader, you know to avoid calamity. Being able to suppress your anger means that you can live longer. I really am inferior to you in this regard. Alright, Qiu Yang is dead, so my academy has cleaned up its mess. We've also finished killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. Other people like to use diplomacy before fighting, but I prefer to first fight and then talk peacefully. Now we can properly chat. I have some business I would like your cooperation with. Also, you two big shots, isn't it time for you to come out and greet me now that you've watched for so long? Long Chen's final sentence was shouted toward the inside of the Jiaoming ancient city. It was for the heads of the Iron Blood Mercenary Group and the Blood Drinking Alliance to hear. Greet you? Sorry, but you don't have the qualifications. A disdainful sneer came from within the city. Hearing this, Qin Feng and the others' expressions sank. Some people still couldn't judge the situation properly. Long Chen smiled and stood up from his chair. He indifferently said, I will count to 3. If you don't come out, then starting now, the Vile Dragon Domain will no longer have a blood-drinking alliance, an Iron Blood Mercenary Group. Boss Long San never says any empty words, but if you don't believe it, you can try it. 1. Favorite. Chapter 3281 Immortal King Tears. Chapter 3281 Immortal King Tears. Long Chen's voice resounded throughout the Jiaoming ancient city. It was calm, but that calmness contained powerful confidence. It was not a threat, and it was not done to scare others. It was like he was just stating a fact, yet also like announcing a heavenly edict. 2. Long Chen didn't give them any time to consider this and directly started counting. The atmosphere instantly grew intense. All the experts within the city held their breaths. This youngster was far too domineering. He was trying to subdue the entire Vile Dragon Domain in one go. Just as Long Chen was opening his mouth to count to 3, the void shuddered and 2 figures appeared in front of Long Chen. One was a tall and thin man in blood-colored armor. He had a spear on his back and emitted soaring blood chi. The other one had sideburns and a beard. His eyes were like copper bells. Also, he had a huge hatchet on his back, and his killing intent was particularly stifling. The one with the spear was the Iron Blood Mercenary Group's leader, while the one with the beard was the master of the Blood Drinking Alliance. Both of them looked at Long Chen coldly. The mercenary leader sinisterly said, Brat, are you not afraid that the 2 of us would join forces and kill you all right here? In the end, Long Chen managed to force both of them out. However, they were both infuriated. Since I dare to come here and call myself boss, I naturally must have the ability to be the boss. If I didn't have the ability to control everything, I wouldn't come here and embarrass myself. If the two of you feel that just killing Qiu Yan wasn't enough, then I welcome any of you to come and provoke me. I don't mind killing two more," said Long Qin indifferently. "You're crazy," said the mercenary leader coldly. "Just this is called crazy? No. That's because you still haven't seen when Boss Long San is really crazy. Even a world king like Emputa isn't placed in my eyes. They'll say something that you won't like to hear. In front of a few mortal tier immortal kings, there's entirely no need for me to go crazy. I know that you are all ruthless characters, and I myself am specialized at killing ruthless people. It seems that my friend's sword alone was unable to shake you. Then he'll give you another chance. Anyone who doesn't submit, come out and challenge me. Of course, it would be no problem even if all four of you came at me together," said Long Qin. After hearing this, their expressions changed. Long Qin was too arrogant. He actually wanted to fight all four of them together? Foolish little brother, with how handsome you are, how could big sister be willing to fight you? Jian Yuhe was the only one who smiled. Jian Yuhe was quite smart. She didn't do anything that she wasn't assured of. As she was unable to see through Long Qin, she didn't make any rash decisions. Being the first to give up on this challenge was quite a smart decision. It both gave face to Long Qin and a way out for her. As for Zhao Qilong, he didn't say a word. He had lost his little spirit King Qiu Yang and was now the weakest of the four major powers. He had no right to be arrogant at this time. He wished for the blood-drinking alliance and the Iron Blood mercenary group's leaders to attack Long Qin. That way, he could see just how strong Long Qin was. However, he was disappointed that the two of them were no fools. Although they acted tough, they had only come to test the waters. To have them challenge Long Qin while Zhao Qilong and Jian Yuhe merely watched? They wouldn't do something so foolish. "What do you want?" demanded the Iron Blood mercenary group's leader. Although his tone was cold, he very clearly didn't want to do something he couldn't win. "I don't want much. I just want to cooperate for something big. I was originally going to talk with you with good intentions, but you didn't seem to want to. When I was little, my mom made me read books. She said after reading books, you can talk reason with others. When I grew up, though, I learned that while I could talk reason, others wouldn't listen. I realized that this method was no good, so I started cultivating with all my power just so that I could force people to talk reason with me. So killing people isn't the goal. The goal is to make others sit down and talk reason. So I want to know, are you willing to talk reason with me now?" asked Long Qin. The four leaders were left rattled by Long Qin. They were confused and had no idea what he wanted. Ultimately, it was Jian Yuhe who said, "Of course we can talk reason. As long as others aren't taking our food, anything can be discussed. Don't you think so as well, little brother?" Long Qin smiled. "I, Long Qin, have walked in this world for so many years, but I've never taken other people's food. Of course, that's other than my enemies. That's another story. Don't worry, I am not interested in your position, nor do I want a portion of this place where even birds don't crap. I simply want to collaborate. The collaboration will be mutually beneficial, and I won't take your rice bowls. We'll even add some extra meat into your bowls." "Really?" The leader of the Iron Blood mercenary group didn't fully believe him. "I, Long Qin, disdain lying. As for why I went to such pains just to eliminate a single Qiu Yang, it was just so that we could properly talk. If there's no need to kill more people, then let us simply sit down and chat." Long Qin waved his hand. A table then appeared along with 4 seats. The 4 of them hesitated slightly, but they all sat down. This indicated that they were willing to listen to Long Qin. The 4 of them had only just sat down when the space around them vanished. They jumped in shock and instinctively reached for their weapons. "No need to worry. This matter relates to certain secrets. I can't let outsiders listen is all," said Long Qin indifferently. Only then did they realize that they were in a peculiar space cut off from the outside world. They also took note of Bai Xiaola, who was behind Long Qin. As they recognized his 3 flower pupils, their hearts pounded hard. Bai Xiaola appeared completely unremarkable behind Long Chen, but he actually possessed such a terrifying divine ability. This one move from Bai Xiaola further shook them. In truth, this was also done intentionally by Long Chen. Only by intimidating them could they properly discuss the future. "Little brother, what kind of good thing did you come here for that requires our collaboration?" asked Jiang Yuhe. She giggled. "It couldn't be collaborating with me to have children, right?" Evil, Si Bai Shir glared at Jiang Yuhe. She felt her to be just like Lu Mingxian. However, Lu Mingxian only had a dirty mouth, but this Jiang Yuhe was capable of actually following through. Furthermore, her clothes that revealed a full view of the mountain valley were definitely a bit unacceptable to a rather conservative woman like Bai Shir. In the face of Jiang Yuhe's teasing, Long Chen smiled. "When it comes to making children, we can consider that later. I want to ask the four of you, if I could offer you a chance to advance from a mortal tier immortal king to a spirit tier immortal king, would you grasp that chance?" "What?" As soon as Long Chen said this, the four of them shot up, staring in shock at him. Favorite. Chapter 3282 Spirit King Pill. Chapter 3282 Spirit King Pill. The Immortal King realm was different from other realms. It was the one where talent mattered the most. In the Immortal King realm, a person's spirit root condensed into crystal form. It was the Immortal King Crystal. It was a bit similar to the cores and nadins of devil beasts and demonic beasts. The Immortal King crystals were split between heaven, earth, spirit, and mortal tiers. The mortal tier was the worst. For ordinary disciples, the Divine Lord realm was their limit. Only primals who had awakened their bloodline could advance to the Immortal King realm, as only they could condense an Immortal King crystal with the support of their primal bloodline. Furthermore, the Immortal King crystal absorbed their bloodline to condense. The result was that over 80% of all Immortal King crystals ended up being mortal tier. Only a small portion managed to condense spirit tier crystals. As for the earth tier and heaven tier, they were mostly all cultivated to that level through later effort. Someone who could condense an earth tier Immortal King crystal right as they advanced to the Immortal King realm was qualified to be called a peerless heavenly genius. They would definitely become an overlord once they grew up. As for anyone who could condense heaven tier Immortal King crystals, they were essentially the peak figures of the immortal world. It was said that Lord Brahma, fallen Day-Knight, and the likes of them had directly condensed heaven tier Immortal King crystals when they advanced to this realm. An Immortal King crystal was called innate when it was first condensed. If it was later cultivated to a higher level through talent, resources, pills, and the various treasures of the world, then they were called acquired Immortal King crystals. Other than the likes of Lord Brahma and fallen Day-Knight, geniuses that might not appear once in a million years, most people advance with acquired Immortal King crystals. Thus, this kind of differentiation was rarely used in the immortal world, as there were essentially no innate Immortal King crystals to speak of. Most people acquired higher tiers through effort, not talent. Hence, the majority of Immortal Kings were in the mortal tier. They had an awkward position in this realm. That was because their realms would stop in the early Immortal King realm. They didn't dare to further cultivate. Once they advanced to the mid-stage, it meant that the quality of their Immortal King crystal was set in stone. No matter what they did in the future, they would never be able to progress to the spirit tier. In other words, their cultivation base would forever stagnate at the mid-Immortal King stage. It would be impossible for them to advance any further. Whether it was mortals or cultivators, the thing that they feared the most was seeing the end of their future. That was a despair worse than death. Thus, the majority of mortal tier Immortal Kings were stuck at the early stage of their realm. If they advanced to the spirit tier, they could reach the mid stage. And if they advanced to the earth tier, they could reach the late stage. Only a heaven tier Immortal King dared to advance to the full circle of the Immortal King realm in preparation for breaking through to the World King realm. Furthermore, different tiers of Immortal Kings possessed vastly different combat powers in the same realm. Due to this tier difference, a spirit tier Immortal King could crush a mortal tier Immortal King effortlessly. Back in the Yuhua Palace, the Patriarch had been able to easily suppress Jiang Weizhong because the Patriarch had advanced to the spirit tier. Even if Jiang Weizhong wanted to revolt, he didn't have the power to fight the patriarch. There was a huge difference between the mortal tier and the spirit tier. Thus, Jiang Yuhe and the others were unable to even speak when they heard Long Chen's words. They were profoundly aware of just how difficult it was to advance to the spirit tier. They had tried countless spirit medicines and had meditated upon countless rare lands, all without the slightest sign of advancing. Thus, they helplessly came to the vile dragon domain. The vile dragon domain was even less suitable for breaking through, so they had accepted their fates. In any case, they were all mortal tier immortal kings, and they were all helpless against each other. Thus mutual restraint was the safest. They were prepared to spend a lifetime here with no intention of advancing. But they hadn't expected Long Chen to toss out such alluring bait as soon as he came. Their heads buzzed. For a while, they were unable to reply. "Are you being serious?" asked the mercenary leader, his voice heavy. If anyone else simply tossed out such an offer, he would directly beat them up for lying. Not even a child would believe such a lie. But when it came from Long Chen's mouth, his intuition told him that Long Chen wasn't the kind of person to lie about this. "I'm very busy. I have no time to waste. I wouldn't tell a lie that is so easy to see through." Long Chen took out a simple case and put it on the table. He indicated for them to take a look. The four of them exchanged a glance. In the end, it was the mercenary leader who couldn't help reaching out and opening the case. Inside the case was a pill covered with spots and wrinkles. It looked very ugly. The mercenary leader was enraged, thinking that Long Chen was duping them. But Long Chen indifferently said, "That is the pill veil. If you take off the pill veil, you'll see its true appearance." Following his instructions, the mercenary leader carefully pinched the pill. With a light sound like a walnut's exterior being cracked, a pure white pill appeared in front of them. This pill was as bright as a full moon. It emitted a gentle light that made everyone's eyes brighten. Jiang Yuhe and the others stared at the pill thirstily. Even Bai Xiaola and the others could hear their hearts pounding wildly. There was a halo of light around the pill that was connected to the interior of the pill. The light spun, and its orbit seemed to contain the profundities of heaven and earth. Just looking at the pill refreshed the mind. The more they stared, the more they wanted to look at it. Moreover, Jiang Yuhe and the others clearly felt their king crystals quivering inside of them. The thirst that their king crystals felt for this pill was even greater than what they felt themselves. "Spirit King Pill!" The mercenary leader swallowed his saliva with great difficulty and spat out 3 words. He recognized this treasure that countless immortal kings dreamed of obtaining. It was something capable of increasing the quality of a king crystal. A Spirit King Pill could allow their immortal king crystal to directly advance to the spirit tier. This was a heaven-defying treasure, one that could change their fates. Hence, Spirit King Pills were incomparably precious. They were priceless treasures that didn't even exist on the market. Well, if there were any available, they were held in the hands of the supreme sections. People like the likes of them were unable to obtain them. They had bitterly tried, using all kinds of methods over countless years, all without obtaining a single Spirit King Pill. Eventually, they gave up and came here to grow old. Now that a Spirit King Pill had sent itself right to them, how could they not go crazy? If it was someone else offering it to them, they would have started fighting over it. But in front of Long Chen, they didn't dare to. Long Chen had even taken out a Spirit King Pill, so they felt even more reverence for him now. The 4 of them were fully subdued by him. "Only one? Do you want the 4 of us to kill each other so that you can gain full control over the vile dragon domain?" asked the leader of the Blood-Drinking Alliance. As soon as he said this, the other 3 cooled down and looked at Long Chen warily. "Is there something wrong with your head, or are you deaf? Didn't I already say that I'm not interested in your powers? Your subordinates are trash. I wouldn't want them even if you were to give them to me. Let me repeat myself, and for the last time because I'm very busy. Do you want to work together or not? If not, then scram," said Long Chen frostily. Long Chen's tone was not at all polite, but hearing him say this put the Alliance head at ease. "Little brother, why don't we get straight to the point? What did you come here for? How can we serve you?" Jian Yuha finally looked away from the Spirit King pill and looked at Long Chen solemnly. Do you know where the ruins of the High Firmament Academy's 7th Branch Academy are? You couldn't be, that is impossible. The four of their expressions instantly changed. Terror filled their eyes. Chapter 3283 Terrifying Place. Chapter 3283 Terrifying Place. Long Chen hadn't expected the four of them to react so strongly. All of them seemed terrified. What? Is that place very frightening? Asked Long Chen. The four of them looked at each other, seemingly not knowing just how to respond. It was Jian Yuha who said, Little brother, didn't you say that you are the dean of the 7th Branch Academy? How could you not know about the state of the 7th Branch Academy? I really don't know. Big sister, please explain it if you can, said Long Chen. He naturally didn't know. The academy had not given him any information at all other than that the 7th Branch Academy was within the Vile Dragon domain. Jian Yuha looked at him oddly. It seemed that he really didn't know. Your High Firmament Academy is the oldest academy in the immortal world, so your branch academies are older than most sections. The 7th Branch Academy was destroyed millions of years ago, and its ruins are located on the south side of the Vile Dragon domain. That is exactly the opposite of Zhaoming Ancient City. With one south and one north, the two are very far apart. Little brother, the south is a land of death. That is where the vile dragons roam and tree demons run rampant. Most frightening of all, there is a deep hole there. Every night when the moon is up, you will hear the roaring of fiends. The curious thing about that fiendish roar is that sometimes it's like ghosts howling, sometimes it's like a woman crying. There are also times when it sounds like singing. The most terrifying one is the singing. It causes a person to lose their mind. Take a look at this. Jian Yuha suddenly pulled down her robe, revealing a triangular black hole. It was as if she had been pierced by something, and the resulting wound could not be healed. Bai Xiaola and the others quickly turned away when she pulled down her robe. However, Long Chen was shocked to feel a strange aura residing within this wound. It was what was stopping her from healing. After showing Long Chen, she pulled her robe back up, seemingly not embarrassed at all. She continued, I was schemed against by a certain person there, resulting in me being drawn in by that devil music. I ended up lured into that region, and then I was stabbed by something while I was affected by the music. The pain woke me up. Fortunately, I was still on the outer edge, and I managed to flee. After that, I established the Dragon Slaughtering Guild. Jian Yuha glanced at Zhao Qinglong with killing intent. It was clear that the person she was referring to was Zhao Qinglong. This was the origin of their enmity. Jian Yuha had come after the Azure Dragon Gang, the Blood Drinking Alliance, and the Iron Blood Mercenary Group were built. Naturally, the original inhabitants did not want new threats to establish themselves in their territory. However, the Blood Drinking Alliance and the Iron Blood Mercenary Group had felt that while she was a threat, she wasn't worth any drastic actions. On the other hand, Zhao Qinglong was quite sinister, taking advantage of her lack of experience with the Vile Dragon domain to con her. But he hadn't expected her to survive. As a result, his scheming had gained him a new mortal enemy. The Blood Drinking Alliance and the Iron Blood Mercenary Group were not allies with the Azure Dragon Gang, so they were quite happy to have someone restrict Zhao Qinglong. As a result, the Dragon Slaughtering Guild was born. It had already been many years, but when she mentioned this terrifying matter, her heart still pounded with fear. The same thing happened every time she thought about it. There's such a thing? It seems that it's going to be quite hard to be the dean then. Long Chen frowned. This matter was even thornier than he had thought. It's not just that. It is essentially impossible to even get close to that region. The legend is that there is some ancient giant corpse buried there. It has infected the soil there and even changes the laws of the heavenly Daos. A suicidal adventurer went there and saw that corpse she had condensed into a giant spatial hole. From that hole, he saw a fiendish world. However, after fleeing back, he didn't even finish explaining his whole story when black blood suddenly gushed out of all his orifices, and he died. Starting then, no one dared to go in that direction. There are also too many devil beasts there. Even the countless precious medicines that can be found there aren't alluring enough for people to risk that danger. The ruins of your 7th Branch Academy are at the core of that region. Your academy wants you to be the dean of that branch? Are you sure that they weren't sending you to your death? Jian Yuhe looked at him curiously. What nonsense! Don't try to sow dissension, raged Bai Shishi. This woman was actually questioning the relationship between Long Chen and the academy. Long Chen said, No, you misunderstand. I was the one who wanted the position of the dean of the 7th Branch Academy. Now that you've said all this, I really am curious about that place. Will you accompany me there? No way. The 4 of them spoke at the same time. All 4 of them had the same attitude toward that place. You're so cowardly? Scoffed Long Chen. The Iron Blood mercenary group's leader shook his head. It's not a question of cowardice. Although our lives are spent on top of a bloody blade, we're not going to do something that is sure death. That is pure stupidity. Although your Spirit King pill is very enticing, it's not enough for us to simply throw away our lives. Clearly, they were extremely terrified of that place. Even the Spirit King pills were not enough for them to risk it. After all, it wasn't as important as their lives. If you give us the Spirit King pills and let us advance to the Spirit tier, perhaps we can talk about it, said Zhao Qinglong. Long Chen smiled. A nice idea. It makes sense. But even if I gave you the Spirit King pills, due to having stagnated at your level for so long, it would take at least 3 to 5 years for you to advance to the Spirit tier. I can't wait that long. How about this? You will accompany me to take a look. If you encounter any danger, you have the right to retreat at any time. Even if we don't succeed, I can give you half of the Spirit King pills as the reward. I'll give 2 pills to the 4 of you. If 2 people absorb a single pill, there is still a 30% chance that you can advance. If we do find the ruins of the 7th Branch Academy, it'll be enough if I can just see it. If so, I'll give all of you a complete Spirit King pill. Your lives are important, and our lives are also important. If it really is impossible, we won't force it. What do you think about that? The 4 of them were moved. Just accompanying them to take a look would get them 1 Spirit King pill each. Although some of the medicinal effects would be lost if it was split, it still had a great effect. Furthermore, Long Chen's words were very reasonable. This was a group of heavenly geniuses. They wouldn't just foolishly charge forward into sure death, so they all felt that it was possible to risk it. Are you sure that you want eat your words? Asked the mercenary leader. Long Chen waved his hand, and a case flew toward the mercenary. He then found another Spirit King pill inside. After that, Long Chen gave the Spirit King pill on the table to Jian Yuhe. Looking at all of them, he said, The word of Boss Long San is definitely not inferior to that of the Huayun Trading Company. Count this as your advance payment. 1 pill for 2 people. Now that they were holding the Spirit King pills, Jian Yuhe and the mercenary leader were both moved. Long Chen's money-spending style was truly shocking. All right. Since junior brother is so generous, big sister will accompany you, said Jian Yuhe solemnly. She was prepared to gamble. Chapter 3284 Ghost Wailing Ape. Chapter 3284 Ghost Wailing Ape. As soon as Jian Yuhe agreed, the other 3 also nodded. This offer didn't come at any loss to them. Furthermore, they had the right to leave at any time. As long as they were careful, there should be no problem. Moreover, they had all seen that Long Chen was someone with extraordinary means. He should cherish his life even more than others. However, Zhao Qinglong also added that if they did fail, he would not split a Spirit King pill with Jian Yuhe. Clearly, he was worried about her doing something to it. He couldn't trust her. As a result, their agreement was complete. If they didn't find the ruins of the 7th Branch Academy, Zhao Qinglong and the mercenary leader would share 1 Spirit King pill. With this matter settled, they came to a mutual understanding. As long as there was no risk to their lives, the 4 of them would lead the way for Long Chin and the others. The 4 of them were delighted to have obtained these 2 Spirit King pills. However, they couldn't consume them now. If they were lucky and found the ruins, then they would each obtain a complete Spirit King pill. A complete Spirit King pill gave them a 100% chance of advancing to the Spirit tier. So, unless they reached the point where there was no more hope, they wouldn't be splitting these 2 pills. However, they were unaware that these 2 pills had been personally refined by Longchen. He had intentionally made them appear old just to dupe them. Originally, the main ingredient of the Spirit King pill was the 100 Spirit Tree Peony stamen. This was a plant that bloomed only once every 1,000 years. Moreover, only the smallest part of its stamen could be used. Adding on the high difficulty and failure rate of refining the Spirit King pill, this pill was a priceless commodity that rarely appeared on the public market. Longchen didn't have the 100 Spirit Tree Peony, but he had the Wood Foundation Divine Trees, which were also spiritual objects of heaven and earth. By extracting its essence and merging it with the Divine Whisker Daffodil, he added completely different secondary ingredients to refine the Spirit King pill. Although he had failed an unknown number of times, he had limitless ingredients, so he didn't mind the failures. For him to have really refined the Spirit King pill with his own unique formula, everything had been worth it. His original plan had simply been to sell them for money. After all, when the Dragonblood Legion was gathered once more, he would need money to raise them. It was unacceptable for him to not have any money. Right now, amongst all the medicinal pills that he had, the Spirit King pill was the most valuable. Since the supply didn't meet the demand, he had made it his goal. However, he hadn't expected that as soon as he finished experimenting with the new formula, he would be able to use it. A few Spirit King pills were enough to make several Immortal Kings help him, so it was definitely worth it. In order to be safe, they discussed it and chose the Iron Blood Mercenary Group's leader to be the main leader. That was because he had been in this domain the longest. He had more understanding of that region than the others. At the same time, they also brought their most capable subordinates. Zhao Qinglong's right-hand man had been killed, so he could only bring a half-step Immortal King as his attendant. They discussed the plan and then decided to rest for a single night. The next day, Bai Shir had fully recovered, and they went on their way. It went without saying that as the local tyrants, these experts were well aware of the terrain in the nearby land. However, even the likes of them traveled carefully. They avoided the territories of quite a few powerful devil beasts. The devil beasts that they could beat in this domain had essentially been killed. And since the remaining devil beasts in this region couldn't be beaten, they went far around them. There were some places where they could fly, and some where they had to stealthily sneak through. Due to there being no transportation formations, they needed to be careful, and it took them 3 days to reach the area that they mentioned. Longchen clearly sensed a strange aura in this place, and Jian Yuhe and the others' expressions gradually grew more and more serious. We're entering the dangerous area. Other than terrifying devil beasts, there are also tree demons that can suddenly strike and take your life without any warning. Let me just say this, if we end up disturbing something terrifying and our lives are in danger, I'm going to run immediately. Don't tell others that I was lacking morals afterward, said the mercenary leader. Morals? Longchen laughed. This laugh made the mercenary leader's face blush. This was the vile dragon domain, a place with slaughter and blood everywhere. Where was there such a thing as morals? Don't worry if there's danger, I won't need you. You just need to lead the way, said Longchen indifferently. Although these experts didn't know where the ruins were exactly, they knew the general location. This region was too big for Longchen to search for it without them. The mercenary leader then nodded, and they continued onwards with their weapons in hand. They maintained the highest level of alert as they moved forward. The jungle grew denser the further they went, and the light in this region also faded. Previously, they had been able to hear birdsong and insects chirping. However, in this region, all sounds faded. It was a frightening silence. Zhao Qinglong and the others might be Immortal Kings that normally killed people without batting an eye, but at this time, they were all tense. Even their palms were sweaty. It had to be known that this was a well-known danger zone. One slip-up could be fatal. The mercenary leader continued to lead the way. He was holding a special compass and constantly checking their position. In such a tense environment, even their sense of direction was being muddled. There seemed to be some mysterious energy here that suppressed people's divine sense. "Wait a moment!" Long Chen suddenly called out. Everyone paused and looked at him. Long Chen took out a bow. With a twang of the string, a ray of light shot out. After that, in the distance, blood splashed. A strange monster that looked to be a cross between a human and a monkey with a pair of wings on its back was killed by Long Chen's arrow. Everyone approached it and took a look. This monster had scales that looked like tree bark, and it had been hiding behind a large tree. Even so, they had been unable to sense it at all. They didn't know how Long Chen had managed to notice it. "Ghost wailing ape!" The mercenary leader's expression changed as he recognized this life form. It was not a life form of the immortal world. There was no record of them. Instead, it was the Vile Dragon Domain's experts that had given a name to this strange life form. They weren't actually that powerful. Instead, it was their ghost wail that was terrifying. It was able to befuddle a person's mind, and even divine lords would be severely affected. It was said that the ghost wailing apes liked to eat people's heads. Once they befuddled people's minds, their sharp teeth would split open their heads and directly suck out their brains. It was an extremely vicious style of killing. Furthermore, they specialized in concealing themselves. The mercenary leader and the others had not noticed this one at all. Furthermore, with it being behind the tree, it wasn't even in their line of sight. "There are still 3 more. Long Chen shot 3 more wooden arrows. Free and yell. In the distance, 3 light sounds rang out. They looked over to see 3 more ghost wailing apes with arrows through their heads. "All right, the threat's been handled. Let's continue." Long Chen put away his bow. Right now, the mercenary leader and the others stared at him in shock. Long Chen's ephemeral archery arts shook their hearts. This calm youngster was truly terrifying. They continued advancing in the jungle for several hours. Just as they went past a large tree, countless vines on top of the tree silently fell toward them. Chapter 3285 Vile Dragon Valley. Chapter 3285 Vile Dragon Valley. Everyone jumped in shock. Those vines were like pythons, with barbs that looked like teeth covering them. Seeing this, the mercenary leader stabbed his spear into a distant tree, and a blood-like liquid flowed out of it. In an instant, those sinister vines went limp. Unexpectedly, these vines were connected to that distant tree. At this moment, Long Chen had also aimed his arrow at that tree. But his speed was a bit slower than the mercenary leader. The mercenary leader then turned to Long Chen. "You really are a monster. You actually saw through its disguise." The reason the mercenary leader was able to find its true body was due to his experience dealing with them. But Long Chen had never seen such an existence before, yet he had instantly found the true body. His perception was frighteningly sharp. Long Chen smiled slightly and they continued onwards. The further they went, the more wary they grew. The mercenary leader said that many of the life forms here were unknown. They were very likely not from the immortal world. Some of them possessed bizarre abilities. One mistake and even an immortal king would die here. These life forms weren't valuable either, and so they never came here to risk the danger. Long Chen investigated some of these life forms that attacked them. Their life energy was very ordinary. When he tossed them into the primal chaos space's black soil, there was no special reaction. They had no cores or nadins. There truly wasn't anything valuable about them. Up ahead is the Vile Dragon Valley. The Vile Dragon Domain is named after it. We have to pass through the valley to reach the location you wish to go, said the mercenary leader. He carefully took out some light green juice and distributed it to everyone. They then rubbed this juice on their bodies. It made their auras merge with the aura of this place. As long as they didn't reveal any killing intent, it would be much more difficult for others to sense them. Unveil. They all sealed their pores and put on camouflage before they continued onwards. The jungle gradually grew sparse, and their field of view grew clear. Ahead of them was a giant gorge. At this moment, they came to a stop behind a boulder and looked into that abyss. Damn! Even someone like Long Chun felt a chill. This valley was like a heavenly chasm in their way, and they were unable to see the end. Within the mountain valley, they saw two winged dragons circling in the air. Further in the distance, they saw what appeared to be a mountain slowly moving. However, when they looked more closely, they found that it was no mountain but a gigantic dragon. It was changing locations to nap. Suddenly, the boulder in front of them shuddered. As a result, they jumped in shock and hastily looked down. A giant dragon was rubbing its back against the cliff wall, causing the ground beneath their feet to crack. All these dragons are probably on the level of immortal kings. Why can't I sense their auras at all? Asked Su Zixiong in shock. Legend is that there are countless vile dragons here. Their numbers might surpass the billions. Before they attack, you can't sense them. But once they do attack, it causes chaos within all of Vile Dragon Valley. Thus, coming here is no different than courting death, said the mercenary leader gravely. Looking at those giant figures, he was terrified. The terrain here is special. They are kneeling on the ground and absorbing some kind of energy from the earth to cultivate. If my guess is correct, they won't leave this valley. Once they leave, their power will leak into the outside world in large quantities. It seems that they possess a special energy, and while they are not in a combat state, they can reduce their energy usage to the point where we can't sense their auras, said Long Chun as he eyed those giant dragons that seemed to be in hibernation. Most of these dragons were earthen dragons. They were considered the lowest level of the dragon race, and they didn't possess high intelligence. However, they saw thousands of these dragons present. If they disturbed all of them, it would be difficult for any of them to survive. Let's go. This time, Long Chun led the way, and a line of people fearfully walked into the valley. Since their bodies were very small and they could conceal their auras, they were more scared than actually in danger. However, while everyone else's nerves were stretched taut, Long Chun was strangely calm. Everyone else's hair was standing on end. Sometimes, a dragon would fly through the air, and they would hastily dodge. Once they were safe, they continued onwards. Those flying dragons would only fly for a while. Some of their dragon might would be unleashed at that time, but then they would find a suitable place for them to rest. After that, their auras would fade, and they entered a hibernation state. After observing this occur multiple times, everyone came to the same conclusion as Long Chun. They had to be absorbing some kind of strange energy from the ground to cultivate. After stopping at one place for a long time, perhaps they had absorbed most of the energy, and so they switched locations. There were countless giant dragons here, but they seemed to be coexisting very peacefully. There was no fighting? It was strange. Boss Dash! Just as they were advancing, Bai Xiaola cried out, making everyone jump. Shouting in this place was no different than courting death. Fortunately, his shout didn't draw the attention of those dragons, so they calmed down. However, the mercenary leader and the others had the urge to kill Bai Xiaola. This brat was practically on the same level as a pig. Bai Xiaola also knew that he had made a mistake, and he pointed in a certain direction. Looking over there, their hearts also shook. There were 4 eggs as big as hills. They had stone patterns on the shells, and if it was just one egg, they really might have mistaken them for boulders. Now that they looked at them closely, they sensed the fluctuations of life coming from within. It seemed that they would hatch soon. It was no wonder Bai Xiaola would cry out. They didn't know what kind of dragon these eggs were, but if it was one of these giant earthen dragons, then their young would be the easiest to tame. If a person could have an immortal king dragon as a steed, just how amazing would that be? The most alluring thing was that those 4 eggs were just sitting there. There were no guards. It seemed that the dragons here were very harmonious and didn't fight each other. Just as Long Chun and the others were preparing to sneak their way over to the eggs, an enormous figure flew over their heads. They hastily hid once more. A dragon had actually chosen to rest near one of those 4 eggs. It was just a few miles away. Seeing that, Bai Xiaola almost wanted to curse. In this enormous space, this dragon just had to choose that spot. There was nowhere for them to hide if they tried to sneak over. That area was too wide open. Give up. We can consider it later, said Long Chen helplessly. He also wanted the eggs, but the current situation did not permit it. The others were all too enticed by those eggs though. Dragon eggs were priceless treasures. Long Chen, I feel like we need to discuss the terms again, said the mercenary leader after a moment's hesitation. Chapter 3286 Terrifying Black Dragon. Chapter 3286 Terrifying Black Dragon. Long Chen didn't even look back. There's no need. The mercenary leader's expression changed. But before he could say anything, Long Chen continued. All the things here are masterless items. They'll belong to whoever can grab them. I already know the general direction. If you feel that the treasures in front of you are very alluring, you can stop here. You've gotten half the reward already. You can choose to look for treasures here or choose to continue with us. Just who was Long Chen? Just looking at his gaze, he knew what the mercenary leader wanted. Obviously, if Long Chen had managed to obtain the dragon eggs just now, the mercenary leader would have been dissatisfied. Hence, he wanted to discuss terms on how any future treasures that they stumbled upon would be split. Long Chen directly refused him. After being led here, he already knew the general direction of the 7th Branch Academy. Even the mercenary leader had never been there, so he only knew the general direction as well. Since that was the case, there was no need for Long Chen to quibble with him over such small matters. If he hadn't been worried about not being able to find the ruins, he wouldn't have even bothered working together with them. Hearing that, the 4 of them were actually quite moved. Long Chen was quite generous. Just leading him here could count as accomplishing half their mission. If they were to regain their freedom and leave, then those 2 Spirit King pills would have entered their pockets quite easily. However, they were also a bit unwilling to leave just like this. They all saw that Long Chen was an unfathomable existence. Following him should be the safest option. Furthermore, Long Chen had also said that whoever could grab the treasures in this domain would get to keep them. That reassured them. Thus, with Long Chen still pressing onwards, they chose to obediently follow behind him. After 2 hours, they saw more and more giant dragons resting. They had no choice but to be cautious and go around them, trying to maintain a safe distance from all of them. This valley was truly enormous. 3 days of travel resulted in them still being stuck midway, so Long Chen was getting a bit impatient. There were dragons everywhere, so they didn't dare to go any faster. But in these 3 days, they had all made some gains. Jian Yuha had stolen a dragon egg, and the vice leader of the Iron Blood mercenary group had obtained a dragon corpse at the Immortal King level. The others had also gotten something. Moreover, the aura here was special. There were some rare spiritual medicines and even some strange ores in this area. Bai Shishir had snatched a fist-sized chunk of golden rock, which contained wild metal energy. It was quite useful to her. However, the most monstrous one was Bai Xiala. Using his spatial arts, he had managed to snatch 6 dragon eggs so far. The vile dragon domain's experts were all envious. Without Long Chen here, they would probably have tried to kill him for those eggs. However, right now they could only be envious and didn't dare to express their greed. After Jian Yuha obtained a dragon egg, her mood improved. She seemed to relax a bit, and actually began to chat with Bai Shishir. But her words often contained traps as she tested Bai Shishi's bottom line. She could see that despite possessing immense power, Bai Shishir didn't have enough experience in the outside world. Regretfully, Bai Shishir ignored her. As for Bai Xiala and Qin Feng and the others, they weren't speaking either. Since she also didn't dare to chat with Long Chen, in the end she shut her mouth. We can't continue like this. This is too slow and we can't waste this much time. Xiala, I'll help you catch a winged dragon. We're flying, said Long Chen. Although this was more dangerous than what they were doing as they didn't have a full understanding of this place, continuing like this was no solution. All right. Bai Xiala instantly got excited. Long Chen eyed a dragon lying on the ground with its wings spread around it. Once they were a certain distance away, Long Chen formed hand seals, and an invisible surge of energy struck the dragon's head. This was a spiritual attack. However, Long Chen was not a soul cultivator, so he could only use the simplest attacks. The moment Long Chen unleashed his spiritual strength, Jiang Yuhe and the others felt their heads buzz. Their minds instantly grew muddled, and they were shocked. Long Chen's attack was concentrated on that dragon, but just some waves from it were enough to affect them. If he was directly attacking them, then he would have countless opportunities to kill them. This was their first time seeing Long Chen do something like this. They were truly shaken. Just then, the dragon's body quivered. Bai Xiaola formed hand seals, and when the dragon opened its eyes, the mark of the 3 flower pupils was present. The moment that the dragon's soul was struck, Bai Xiaola took control over it. The dragon suddenly stood up and opened its mouth at them, seemingly about to eat them. Seeing this, Jiang Yuhe and the others turned pale. But just as they prepared to fight back, they heard Long Chen scold someone. "Don't mess around!" The dragon's mouth stopped in the air in front of everyone. Only then did Jiang Yuhe and the others realize that Bai Xiaola was actually teasing them. They were furious because they really had been terrified just now. They weren't afraid of a single dragon, but they were afraid of disturbing all the other nearby dragons. Bai Xiaola smiled naughtily, clearly pleased after scaring them. He truly was a child, one who didn't realize that when people scared others, some of them could be scared to death. Long Chen took out a flying boat. They set foot into the flying boat, and the flying boat was placed inside the dragon's mouth. After that, the dragon spread its wings and flew off. With Bai Xiaola controlling the dragon, their speed instantly soared. In just 2 hours, they seemed to see the end of the valley. "Watch out!" Long Chen suddenly shouted when a giant mouth suddenly bit down. Black teeth then bit through their dragon, and blood rained down. Long Chen had only seen a giant black head appear for an instant before its mouth clamped down. It was another dragon, as black as ink. Moreover, it was over 10 times bigger than the dragon Bai Xiaola was controlling. "It's a devil dragon!" Long Chen's expression changed. This black dragon's aura was completely different from the other dragons that they had encountered here. It had the aura of the devil race on it, and it was a bit similar to evil dragons. But it was also different from the devil race's aura. The aura of this devil dragon was unique. Previously, when Long Chen chatted with Dragonbone Evil Moon, he had learned some of the history and knowledge of the dragon race. But in the Academy's texts he had come to learn that the devil dragons were existences of the devil world. Why would they appear here in the immortal world? "Don't move!" Long Chen saw Jiang Yuhe and the others preparing to attack and immediately shouted at them. He then flew out with his bone saber in hand. After Long Chen cut off their dragon's head, it fell from the rest of the body. Just at this moment, the black dragon devoured their dragon's body in just a few gulps. Ignoring the falling head, it turned toward other resting dragons in the surroundings. Long Chen and the others took advantage of this to flee from the dragon head. They hid, staring at that black dragon in shock.